What are today's expectations in your role as CISOs?
Gosh, I want to start with sort of be all things to all people. It's a crazy varied role that in any given day you need to consider strategy, you need to have technical acumen, business acumen, you've got to worry about compliance, you need to build relationships. Oh gosh, you have to recruit people for your team, you need to mentor, you need to have strong communications internally and externally, you need to network. I'm very appreciative of my network of CISOs, Alicia being one of them, that I can lean on if things are crazy, if you need to vent, if you need to, hey, have you looked at this particular technology? Because the amount of technology that we need to deal with in this space is stunning. And my overarching goal is to kind of transform security from sort of this policing mentality and perception of, being a roadblock to a digital business enabler, which requires a lot of conversation in translating our CISO technical speak, our cybersecurity technical speak into terms that business people can understand and relate to and appreciate and want to invest in this function and look at it as adding value as opposed to just detracting from investing in something else. Alicia, what do you think?
All right. Yeah. So I just want to say thanks, Santi, for asking me to participate in this, and I'm truly amazed by the women that are have been speakers here today. Truly a very talented group of ladies, and this is a panel, so kind of just go off the top of your head, but just to take away from what we've heard today, there's been so much great information that's been put out, really, from talking about the growing frequency of the cyber attacks. That makes our role as a CISO, that much harder, right? So I would call that out. And I'd say, the expectations of a CISO, the environment's changing. So, we're looking at cyber attacks. We've talked about, the supply chain security issues that we have, that's definitely, on the front burner with us, and we're trying to, attack that and shore that up as much as we can. There's, Internet of Things and all these other new technologies that are exploding and creating new complexities for CISOs. And then the other piece, which is the one that you really can't control that much, is the human error is increasing because of the complexity of the environment, right? So that's what we're dealing with. And every time I work with Lisa on one of these panels, she always goes first, and she's really smart. So she says all the great things that I wanted to say, and I knew that was going to happen. So I was trying to think about it in a different perspective, and I looked at it from like, what's the expectation of a CISO as far as what roles are you supposed to, to act in order to do your job, right? And the first thing I was thinking about is there's a guardian role, right? So everybody looks at you to be the guardian of the company, that you're supposed to protect the company's infrastructure, the company's data, and not just company data, but you got to protect the customer data. There's things that we're doing, obviously all the technical controls that we have to put in place to protect the perimeter. We use all kinds of models, which you heard a lot of today, threat-informed defense, defense in depth, heard a little bit about zero trust, things like that. So, we're looking at all those type of things that we have to do. So guardian would be the first role that I think that we do as a CISO and have an expectation to do. And the second piece, which Lisa hit on, obviously, is being a strategist, right? So we have to work with the business to drive an alignment between what's the business risk and what's the cyber risk, and how do we align strategies to make sure that we're, attacking the risk and at a prioritized level, right? We don't have resources to do everything, so we have to really do it on a prioritized level. And how do we manage that risk? How do we do it? We do it through innovation, and we do it through being a change agent. Sometimes it's just trying to drive in, policies and compliance and things like that, putting new investments in and maturing processes and things like that, right? So second piece, I think that you have to be really involved in is being a strategist. The third thing that to me, really, you could put these aren't in any special order, but is being a technologist, right? You're, as the CISO, you're considered the premier technologist in a company, and you're usually one of one. So I would say that knowing your craft is super important, right? You definitely have to know technology, and not just technology, you have to know how to secure technology. So I always like to think that I'm always, one step ahead of the CIO. But that's not just on, and it's not, it used to be when I first started, you just had to worry about your corporate environment, and now it's extended into the business, right? So the CEOs are telling you, Alicia, you're not responsible just for the corporate infrastructure, you're responsible for the business as well. So it's really expanded the role tremendously. And the fourth thing I would think is being, advisor, again, to the business, right? So it used to be, again, just really internal facing CISO's roles. Now they're external facing as well. So, CISOs do a lot of time with the business and going and talking to customers and showing them how do we utilize products and how are we customer zero for a lot of products that we're selling. So there's a lot of that goes on. And Lisa hit on this one as well, is the fifth role, I think, is being a communicator, right? The CISO and their organization isn't the only ones that does security. It's the whole entire company. That's that's touching your environment. So you have to do a lot of communication and a lot of training sometimes on a daily basis, but at least on communicate weekly or monthly with your company. And then the last thing is, which I think is becoming more and more important, is being a leader, right? So when there's an incident with a company, it's a significant emotional event, and CEOs and all the executive committee members, all the leaders in the company, all eyes are on you to lead them through these incidents that are happening with companies on a daily basis. So I'll wrap there, but I'll say that quite a lot of expectations on CISOs today, and definitely one of the positions where people are probably getting fired the most rapidly out of as well too.
All right. Sounds very, very complex, and yeah, we definitely only may think that's half of it, but it's so good to hear you and share your experience. And next question is absolutely about your experience, and it's actually the topic of the panel. I would like to ask you both, which was, being as complex as it is, your hardest day at the office? That day that, of course, that you just can't forget, or that day you tell your family about. What happened? Can we know about that?
So interestingly, Santiago, my worst day, I really couldn't talk to my family about. So I'll just start right there. So many years ago, and in a role prior to CareSource, I was at a technology company leading security for a line of business within the portfolio that was providing cloud services for external customers when our corporate security team, so luckily not me personally, I didn't pick up the phone, but the corporate security team received the dreaded call from Brian Krebs and received the opportunity to work with the FBI on a breach, on an issue. So it's hard to describe when your vocation is defending your company and your customers, the pit in your stomach when you find out there's been a breach. And then all that goes into the aftermath of that, because it's not an aftermath of days, it's an aftermath of months and potentially years from that dreaded call. And it's not the thing that you get to go home and talk about because it's so highly confidential. So fortunately for me, again, I didn't receive the direct call, but being part of the broader security leadership across the company, I certainly had an impact. So my line of business, technology offering, fortunately for me, was somewhat separate from the corporate infrastructure. So I was spared some of the on-the-ground work. But unfortunately, I spent the aftermath of that was many hours on calls and in person with my customers and their legal teams and our internal legal team, and all of the supporting infrastructure around incident response that I had to be part of. Since I had previously been on the corporate security team, I also spent a lot of time talking to lawyers, which is never the place that you want to be. Apologies to any lawyers out there. And executives, just as part of the investigation. So obviously I can't delve into the finer details, but that is absolutely the experience that we all dread and nobody wants to have. Having said that, it was also probably the most important experience of my career. And it's made me a far better CISO because I took from that so many lessons. I don't overly worry about what it's like to suffer a compromise because I know what that's like, and I know what the beginning, middle, and ongoing impact of that looks like. And I also understand it can happen to any of us. So when it's, I want to get wrapped up in perfect security or chasing the latest shiny tools or obsessing about driving risk to zero, I remind myself that I need to, be focused on the broader program and not get overly wrapped up in some of the things that are not delivering the bang for our buck. So I could talk on and on about what I learned, but I'll turn it over to Alicia and we'll hear about her hardest day.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Lisa.
yeah, thanks for that.
Hmm.
So I would say my hardest day at the office, actually, it could be any day of the week, just pick one, right? Because everything, every day is a new day. It's always exciting, and it's usually never good news that you get, as a CISO. So instead of giving you like one, I was going to hit on like 4 different ones that are kind of different areas so that you could be even more aware of things that are going on. So I actually work at Cognizant now. I've been here for about 2.5 months, and I'm not going to say in one of my past CISO roles, but I was literally on day 2, right? And then our instrumentation starts alerting, dashboards are going red, looks like we're hitting, indications of compromise and things like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Day 2, and we already have, dashboards lighting up. And what generally happens is you get early indications that there is a bad guy either, trying to get in or that's got in before you start, seeing stuff exfil, hopefully. But at the end of that day, it took a lot of threat hunting and a lot of experienced, cyber professionals to get their arms around what exactly happened. But luckily, we were able to stop the APT in their tracks, and they weren't able to start to move laterally or exfil any data or anything like that. So that was my second day at one of my companies. So that was a pretty a little bit test your worth, like on your second day, right? The other one I want to talk about, which happens quite a bit, especially I came from the defense space, and the last 10 years I worked inside the defense industrial base space, at defense contractors, and we work very, closely with FBI there, right? So I literally was on the job for no kidding, like I'd been there for like a month and a half, and the FBI calls and they're like, "Is this Alicia Lynch?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is." And then they tell me who they are. I'm Agent so and so. I'm with the Cyber Task Force, and da da da. And then like Lisa said, you just start, your heart starts pounding and you start sweating and all the, you have all these, it's a significant emotional event, and you start listening to what they have to say. So on this particular day, the agent, they usually tell you like that they'll give you the IP of a server, and we have literally tens of thousands of them, or a device or something like that. So they'll tell you what they can to show, how you can find a device in your environment. And then they tell you that, you need to check it out because we see it's communicating with a threat actor that they happen to be watching, right? So you're like, oh my goodness, right? So there goes your day. And I'm happy to report on that day that, it was a compromise, but it was only a bounce through. So there was an APT that actually, bounced to a server that was external facing, wasn't properly, vulnerabilities weren't shored up on it. So, it was an opportunity to be used as a hop through. And so that wasn't super significant, but still you don't know till you've gotten like 6 hours of hunting under your belt to figure out what exactly happens, right? And then probably the worst, I would say truly the worst day ever for me was I had been telling my leadership and even the board members at a company that I was at that we had a managed service environment that was not very secure, right? And you're running lots of customer programs out of it, and I'd repeatedly warned that it wasn't in not even in superior condition. It wasn't even in mid-level condition as far as its cyber hygiene was going, and that something really bad was going to happen. And for 18 months I was telling him, it's kind of like the boy who cries wolf, right? So I'm telling him all the time, like, I need to get a hold of this environment. Obviously I wasn't running the environment, but I couldn't get entree into it, but I wanted to, so that I could shore it up, right? And finally, after 18 months of telling him, they're all like, yeah, nothing's going to happen. And then it finally did. We got the call from the FBI to let us know that they had seen our devices that were talking to threat actors and trying to say this without giving away the farm here, but anyways, it was a bad news situation, right? And that event, it was bad because we had predicted that was going to happen and nobody took the actions in order to shore it up. And then when it finally happened, it cost in the tens of 20s of $30 million in order to remediate it, right? So it was like an ounce of prevention would have been worth the pound of cure, on the in hindsight. But that, I think, is a pretty routine occurrence with a lot of companies, because it does take so much money in order to shore things up and get your security as hardened as you possibly can. And then I would say that just another routine thing that happens to me on a weekly basis, and this one in particular happened over this weekend, right? So I get a call and it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're saying that the CEO is going in to talk to the CEO of another company, and then what's been brought to his attention, which is not routinely wouldn't be brought to his attention. He finds out before he's going in to talk to this big company CEO that one of the associates that work for us had actually put code in a wrong location, and then it was exposed in the wild, and all these other kind of things are going on. So here I'm getting the call from the CEO, and he's like, I'm talking to the CEO of this company in 1 hour and a half, and you've got exactly 1 hour to get me all the information you can on it. So then you got to go into action and start to get basically you're doing a mini investigation, and you've got 1 hour to do it in order to get the CEO all the information that he needs. So those are kind of those are typical days, and it happens all the time, but it's very it's very emotional when you're going through those type of situations, because all eyes are on you, making sure that you're shoring it up as quickly as possible, and you're limiting all the damage that could be done. And obviously these things could rise to a huge level and be communicated outside of the organization, and then it becomes like a hit on your brand and on your reputation. So lots to control there. So I could talk all day, but I'll stop right there.
No, it's really good. It's really good to hear you. I remember one of the things that we discussed, or one of the things that you actually said in one of these meetings, like, you have these people telling you, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. And my question to you now is, what makes you want to be on your shoes? What do you love about being a CISO, and about having all of these things in your day-to-day basis?
So I think Alicia kind of described it. You never know what your day is going to be like. So if if you're a little bit prone to getting bored, you'll never, ever, 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 ever get bored in this role. It's just not possible. I said I don't overly worry. I do worry a ton, but I don't worry about what the big breach will be like. I worry about how do we do all the things that we need to do with limited everything, right? Because you never have as much of time, resources, et cetera, that you would like to have. So I worry about those things. But the things that bring me joy, not only the varied experience, the continual challenge, the need to continually learn, but it's also the people. So I feel very personally invested in my staff. We're a smaller but mighty team compared to the rest of the organization. And I get a lot of joy out of developing them, sharing my experiences with them, and helping us do all of the things well, striving to do the technology well, the things that we don't want to do, nobody wants to do, like the cyber hygiene things, the sort of dredge, the push the rock up the hill every single day, helping us not lose focus on those things, and having that big picture because of my experiences on where we need to push our resources and develop. And the last piece is developing in the realm of developing people. It's about solving the puzzle, which is ever changing, of what those pieces fit together like, so that you are playing to people's strengths and enabling them to be successful while you're developing them technically, professionally, etc. So that's what brings joy to my day. But also, I guess I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, if I'm being quite honest, because there's a little bit of adrenaline in probably every single day.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and I'd say, why do I love being a CISO? For a lot of the same reasons Lisa does, and I'll also, foot stomp the puzzle job, that it's a puzzling job, or if you like puzzles, it's a good job, but basically it's intellectually challenging every single day. So that makes it super exciting for me. And I definitely think that this job makes, not that every job in the company doesn't impact it in some way, but I definitely think that the CISO makes a difference and impacts the company in significant ways, and definitely is a role that you're a change agent, right? You're constantly moving forward, constantly maturing things, constantly finding new ways that the bad guys are getting in, and you gotta shore it up quickly. So it's definitely an impactful position to be in. I think also too, why I really like it is that, I served 30 years in the Army. I was a cyber officer and an intelligence officer. And I obviously served in the military, not for the pay. It's because I liked protecting and serving my country. And I really think that, in this role, that in not just in the CISO role, but in cybersecurity in general, you're really protecting the company's brand, you're protecting and serving, you're serving that company, right, to make sure that it's you're protecting its name and its reputation and its customers as well, right? And I think last, just so we can have a minute or two for questions, is that, I'm definitely a moral crusader, and this field is a place for people like that to be, right? So it gives me a lot of opportunity to make things right and to always do the right thing, and that's what I like about it. So I love it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, we've got just 3 minutes for a couple of questions. I have one already from the audience, and it's, how do you build the partnerships with vendors and also review new solutions within your business?
I don't think we can cover that in 3 minutes.
Well, as briefly as you can, of course.
Unfortunately, it's a rather lengthy and involved process in order to do that. But we consider the usual things: identifying products of interest, pushing them through a rigorous review, and ensuring that we consider the security aspects related to any particular offering. And then, of course, you have to deal with our legal department in getting through all of the contract pieces. So just the usual stuff, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is that, you have to build a relationship with them. So you obviously you spend a lot of time with them learning about their product, and then, once you do purchase their product, and you keep them, you keep maintaining contact with them. So I would just say, like, get to know them, not like your family and friend, but pretty close, right? You spend a lot of time with them.
And
All
we
right.
are very reliant on our technology partners to be successful. So that ends up taking, you know, a good bit of investment in time.
Definitely.